All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit after the election about Trump and political strategy. So if you don't mind, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe. Try to make sure my setup here is straight. Everything looks pretty straight. So I want to talk to you about Trump and political strategy. So this is how I view Trump. I do not see Trump as a unique threat in that I don't think he is all that much different than just the average white guy on the street. I mean, he does say a lot of racist stuff, but I've heard that from a lot of different white people. So, and then on top of that, 75% consistently of white men vote for Trump and Trump-backed candidates and Trump-like candidates. In addition, about 50% of white women vote for him. So whatever he says and espouses, it's not all that different than any other white person that you're going to meet. But I also think that there is a chance and a serious possibility that he is bold enough to attempt to do something like deport a host of like non-white immigrants or make some serious action against immigrants that aren't white of some type. Now, I don't know if that's going to be like a mass deportation or just, I mean, we're already seeing a lot of violence against Jewish people, women, by his supporters. So I do think that there's a possibility that there could be some mass action against a group of minorities. And I think it's more likely that'll happen to non-white immigrants than it would be to black people or another minority group or women. So I think we have to come up with strategies to stop the conservative agenda in general. Now I say conservative agenda because I'm not one of these people that believes there is a benign conservatism. I mean, at this point, what they're calling the alt-right or the white fascist, white supremacist, they're working hand in hand with establishment Republicans. And one way you see that is through InfoWars. So InfoWars is run by a man named Alex Jones. And one of the first people Trump called to thank after his victory was Alex Jones. So Alex Jones is backed and supported by Roger Stone. And Roger Stone is a well-known Republican operative that worked in all of the Republican presidential campaigns to some degree, except for Mitt Romney. Now, Roger Stone is also, when Roger Ailes was alive, they worked closely together too. So it's kind of an open secret that Roger Ailes would send direction to Roger Stone for Alex Jones to make wild conspiracy theories. That way, Roger Stone and Roger Ailes didn't have to get their hands dirty. And then on top of this, you see Fox News currently pushing the conspiracy theories about the caravan that's coming and whatnot. And so all these people have been working in cahoots for a long time, and people have known that these people have worked in cahoots for a long time. On top of that, as I've said in other blog posts, you have Stephen Miller and Stephen Bannon. Even though Steve Bannon was officially fired, there's tons of reports saying that these people are working together. If you look up Steve Bannon or Stephen Miller, their ideology isn't just about stopping illegal immigration. They want America to go back to being a majority white country, and they don't want to have all these non-white immigrants here. That's their ideology. Even if they're pushing for anti-illegal, quote unquote, illegal immigration at the moment, they're going to keep expanding and expanding it. So, I mean, they just talked about last week redefining birthright citizenship. And they're already doing things like going back in people's paperwork, and if there's a mistake or discrepancy, accusing the person of fraud and deporting them. So I really can't understand why any immigrant is still supporting Trump or genuinely trusts that he's going to stop at illegal immigration, or he's going to give these people a fair trial for them to prove or disprove they are here illegally or they tried to commit fraud. So I think it is, at this point, we should assume that eventually he's going to try to make a serious play against non-white immigrants, because that's where the majority of the evidence is pointing to, that he's going to keep moving towards and moving towards. So how do you combat that? So I'm not a yellow dog Democrat. I don't believe she just blue no matter who. I don't believe that. That's silly. For me, I'm registered as a Democrat. And I'm registered as a Democrat because I live in D.C. And the real elections are the primary. Unless you live in a swing state, and swing states are basically Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, Virginia, kind of. And that's the only ones I can really even think of are swing states right now. The real election is always in the primary. So I would recommend that a person looks at their state and figures out if they're living in a red or a blue state. And then you should join what political party is dominant. So even if your ideology is more aligned with the Democrats, if you live in Alabama, you're better off joining the Republican Party, and then when they primary Republican, picking the most centrist Republican. Because when you get to the general elections, there's not going to be enough Democrats there to get the Democrat elected anyway. So if you live in a blue state, even if you are more Republican leaning, if there's not enough Republicans to get a Republican elected, you should pick the most centrist Democrat. Now that's how you play the primary, okay? Now when you get to the general, you just vote your conscience. And for me, I'll vote for a Democrat as long as they're either endorsed by Our Revolution, or they're endorsed by Bernie, or Justice Democrats. They're a real progressive. If they're not running a real progressive, I vote for a Green Party candidate. Because by putting effort and energy behind the Green Party, I send the signals to the Democrats that I'm for this large percentage for a very left-leaning platform. But because I live in D.C., overall, most people are going to vote Democratic anyway. So I don't really run the risk of having a Republican be in charge of something in D.C. Now, this is going to be different if you live in Virginia. You should just vote. That might be a very good strategy, just to vote blue no matter who, because the odds of somebody Republican getting in is a little bit higher in Virginia, North Carolina. So that's how I'm playing my politics that way. So you gotta look more strategically, more so than you look at what your values are or anything like that. At least till you get to the general election. And so that's gonna be backed up by a guy named Eddie Glaude. He's a professor, one of the best political scientists in the country, MSNBC contributor. And he had an interview with Michael Eric Dyson, and he put forth that as a political strategy. And once he put it forth, I just implemented it, because I feel like he's somebody who's really in the know and knows how to get things done. And I also believe that if you can put enough energy behind a third party to get them to like 20% of the vote, and you can do that by voting for Green Party in blue dominant states, or in red states that are so red they can't, that the odds of getting a Democrat in isn't going to happen. voting for the Green Party there could be a good strategy to get them up to the 20% to where they can start being in national debates and that party starts growing and gets a little bit more headway and a little bit more news. So the reason that I am making this vlog is because I went to a talk with a guy named Jeffrey Pugh, Dr. Jeffrey Pugh. And he is an expert on a man named Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And so Bonhoeffer was a German theologian. And he studied in Germany, but he also studied in America at Union Theological Seminary. And when he was at Union, he couldn't find a good church until a friend of his, because it was integrated seminary, and he took him to Abyssinian Baptist Church in Harlem, and everybody knows a big famous black church pastored by Adam Clayton Powell Sr. And that's when he says he became a true Christian. And his understanding of Christianity was to help the least in a society. So Bonhoeffer, when he was in America, worked with black leaders to advance our civil rights. And he went back to Germany to stop the Nazis. So when he first started, he was he was trying to keep the church from going along with Nazism. So one of the things Hitler understood was you have to build a coalition of different people. So Hitler concentrated on getting elites in society on his side, military, and then also the churches. And so 25% of Germany's churches were wholeheartedly for Hitler. So as soon as he came on the scene, they liked what he had to say, they agreed with it, and they just supported him. Now, around 60% just wanted to stay neutral. They didn't want to get involved. They didn't want to take a stand. They wanted to play it safe. So as the Nazis started encroaching on them, they just always capitulated. So Bonhoeffer, along with a guy named Karl Barth, they went out and they started the Confessing Church of Germany. So as Nazis took over the church, they had them change creedal and doctrinal documents and philosophies to fit Nazism. And they saw Nazism as a form of earthly salvation in the German church. So Karl Barth and Bonhoeffer, they were opposing that, and they wanted to keep their confessions the way they always were. So they started the Confessing Church, and they did it to oppose Nazi Germany. But even though they were trying to resist, most of the church ended up capitulating because most people weren't strong enough to stand up against the Nazis like that. So at a certain point, Bonhoeffer and Barth become part of a plot to kill Hitler. Now the plot fails because they tried to kill him with the bomb, and the bomb exploded too soon. And so both Karl Barth and Bonhoeffer are arrested and later executed. But going back to Dr. Pugh, who I met a week ago at Presbyterian Church, he gave a talk. He talked about the similarities between Nazism and what went on in Charlotte. And he was very clear about a couple of things. Those that protested in Charlotte in 2017 from the right wing, most of them were Nazi sympathizers. They were chanting Nazi slogans like blood and soil. A lot of them had swastika and Adolf Hitler t-shirts and merchandise on. And so this idea, and they also supported Trump. So this idea that that there was good people on both sides, or that Trump isn't supporting white supremacy, is just utter nonsense. I mean, Trump knew what those people were there chanting and what they believed in. He didn't stand up to them at all or anything. So the current conservative government and ideology supports and goes right hand in hand with the alt-right or white supremacy or Nazism or whatever other words you want to call it. They've become one thing now. And they've become one thing because of chiefly the Southern strategy. Now, the Southern strategy was implemented after Nixon, and they were trying to get the disenfranchised Dixiecrat voter who felt abandoned by LBJ. And so Nixon started it, but it was perfected by a man named Lee Atwater in the 80s, who was one of Reagan's campaign organizers. And you see a lot of racist ads coming out from Lee Atwater, the most notable of which is the Willie Horton ad, where they claim that a Massachusetts convict named Willie Horton got a weekend pass to get out of prison. And the pass was given to him by Dukakis. And he left and he raped and killed a white woman. Now, in reality, the weekend pass program was put in before his opponent Dukakis came into office. So a Republican supported and gave and started the program. Willie Horton wasn't even named Willie. He always went by the name William. They just said Willie because it sounded more hood. Now, once you understand about the Willie Horton ad, this Salazar ad that just came out from Trump, where they have an El Salvadorian illegal immigrant laughing about massacring a whole bunch of white people, and that was put out a week ago. That's the ad that Trump was asked about tonight, or this afternoon, and he called the reporter racist. That ad is very analogous to the old Willie Horton ad. So that's letting you know that the white supremacists had always have for a long time been a part of the right wing. Now, I think the right wingers, the quote unquote moderate white right wingers, understand that having this very fringe, violent faction helps to suppress political dissent on the left, because many people are scared that they're going to be killed or shot at rallies against the right. So I think a lot of the moderate Republicans understand this and support it, whether they support it from a complicit standpoint or they out and out support it through talking about free speech, which violent speech is not protected by the First Amendment. It's not. So that's why I'm saying that conservatism, white nationalism, alt-right, it's all become one thing now. And I mean, there are a lot of black people that are right-wingers. I don't think they fully understand how intricately white nationalism is part of conservatism, and that you really can't have a conservative movement without the white nationals. If all these Proud Boys and KKK go away, then you'll have more people dissenting on the left, and you'd have more of a groundswell. America really could change. So at this point, I'm not giving any cover to the right wing or any support. I mean, I can personally be okay with somebody who I think doesn't fully understand how all this stuff goes together, but for the most part, I can't give any cover or support to a right winger. It's just not. I mean, at this point, it's too obvious. That alliance is just too obvious at this point, and I think we really need to work to change it. Well, that's all I got to say for right now.